Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're in for a new video in which we will talk about the movies that Olivia de Havilland and Errol Flynn did together. They starred together in 8 films, well actually 9 if you also count the movie Thank Your Lucky Stars, which was a review musical that Warner Brothers produced during World War II. So for the purposes of this video, we'll only count the 8 movies that they really starred together. So this week, in honor of Errol Flynn's birthday and also Olivia's upcoming birthday, the 1st of July, which is super exciting, I thought it would be a fun idea to attempt to rank all the films they did together and see which ones I love and I consider the best. Of course, as always, again, these are my opinions and I might be biased by the fact that I adore Errol and Olivia together, that they are one of my favorite on-screen, off-screen couple in classic films, and also by the fact that I must admit that some of the films that I will be ranking I have only seen a couple of times and some of them a very long time ago, so I'll try to do my best. So the purpose of this video obviously is just to celebrate their contribution together in movies and also a mini celebration in honor of the birth of Errol Flynn, which was the 20th of June of 1909, and this year he would be celebrating his 111th birthday. And before I start with the ranking, I want to warn you that this video would definitely contain spoilers, so what I will do as always is put some timestamps on the movies that I will talk about today, so feel free to jump from one to the other if you don't want to hear some spoilers, and I hope that works out well. I'll try to do my best and I will try to do Olivia and Errol's films some justice, hopefully. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. In position number 8, I have placed the movie Santa Fe Trail. I believe this was Olivia and Errol's 7th film together, and easily one that in my opinion they could have just skipped altogether. It is my least favorite movie, not only because the little that I know, it is very inaccurate in its portrayal of the events that took place and that prompted America's Civil War. Also because I feel that Olivia and Errol's characters here are extremely limited by the film's treatment and development. This film looks at some of the generals in the United States who were all good friends before the Civil War. These generals were Lee, Stuart, and Custer, and at the forefront of the story we have Errol Flynn, who plays Jeb Stuart, and Ronald Reagan, who plays General George Armstrong Custer in here. And initially they're both competing for the love of Olivia de Havilland, who plays Kit Carson Holiday. And Errol Flynn plays, again, Jeb Stuart, and a year later he would play George Armstrong Custer. So also in the movie we have Raymond Massey, who gives a very chilling performance as John Brown, who is a very controversial figure from what I've been able to read. To get into the historical aspect of this movie would be quite disrespectful on my part because I don't know that much and I haven't studied it enough to be able to properly discuss this. All I know that it is very apparent that the story is not accurate is sadly a similar case, as they died with their boots on, and perhaps the only things that are worth mentioning here aside from Errol and Olivia are Van Heflin's appearance, who is an actor that I really admire, and we have Max Sustainer's score. Of course, since it's a movie directed by Michael Curtiz, the action scenes are good. There's some entertaining moments, but in general, again, there's little, in my opinion, to be in favor of. I think they did much better films than this one. Okay, next one up, and it's not that far away from Santa Fe Trail, is for me The Charge of the Light Brigade. This one is another military movie, another one based on historical events. The movie, in this case, it's based on a poem by Lord Tennyson, and it features the 27th Lancers in India in mid-19th century and their famous suicidal attack in the Balaclava battle. It was made again, as I said, right after their initial film Captain Blood, and this movie was a success in any case. It helped solidify Errol Flynn's image as an action hero in the 30s, and it also follows a trend in that decade where they made several films taking place in India with the British Army, like Ganga Din, Lives of a Bengal Lancer, and Wee Willie Winkie. And this one is definitely a difficult film for me to watch, especially after I read Errol Flynn's autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways. In that book, he explains how appalled he was by the treatment of horses in this movie, especially for the action sequences for the battle I just mentioned. And it is one of the reasons why Errol Flynn confronted Michael Curtiz, because he seemed to be condoning these practices. But there was some serious damage done here that, again, Errol Flynn, who was an avid horseman, protested. And not only that, another reason for me to not adore this film is, spoiler alert, because Errol and Olivia don't end up together, which is to me unacceptable. And I know that I'm biased here. I really adore, as I said in the beginning, both of them together. So she is supposed to be in love during the whole movie with Patrick Knowles, who is an actor that participated in many of their films. You will maybe remember him as Will Scarlet in The Adventures of Robin Hood, but we have an impressive cast though here of secondary actors with Donald Crisp, Nigel Bruce, Spring Byington, and David Niven. Again, final thoughts for this film, A Santa Fe Trail. The action sequences might do well with some viewers, but all in all, for an Errol and Olivia's fan, like my case, it's not a very satisfying movie. Okay, in position number 6, we have another film that I haven't seen in a very, very long while, and that is The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex. Another historical piece. In this case, though, I think that this movie is slightly better than the previous two. And this one includes Bette Davis, who plays Queen Elizabeth I, and the movie depicts her relationship with the Earl of Essex, played by Errol Flynn. In this case, again, Olivia has a very superfluous part, and she doesn't play Errol's love interest here. So again, for someone like me who enjoys seeing them together, this movie, it's also not a very satisfying one. It would probably work best for Bette Davis fans. And while I do appreciate and admire many of her performances, I think that here she is a bit over the top for my taste. And also, there was animosity between her and Flynn. It is something that I read too about in his autobiography, in which he explains the scene in the movie in which she slaps him, and she really did it with all of her might. He seems to just wish they would have ended in better terms. However, I must say that for some strange reason, I think they do have some sort of chemistry. It must be what in my previous video I was discussing about what Douglas Sirk said, that actors must like each other in real life in order for them to have chemistry, or better yet, they have to hate each other's guts. Well, that seems to be what happens here. They do have, in my opinion, some sort of chemistry, but again, it's not at all satisfying to me not to see him with Olivia and see her just relegated to a very minor role. And it seems also that she wanted for the part of the Earl of Essex, Laurence Olivier, and Warner Brothers couldn't get him, and that was one of the reasons why she was mad at Errol Flynn, but I think his level of charisma, the way he approaches him, he seems to be a very ambitious character, a bit reckless, and I think he does a good job at it. But alas, is a film that doesn't seem to work. For me, it has a lot of dialogue. It's based on a play, but it has again some points in favor for me. Technicolor, for one thing. The score of Eric Korngold is always a plus, and we have Vincent Price in a minor role as Sir Walter Raleigh, and also Henry Daniell, who plays Sir Robert Cecil, but who would always be for me Sidney Kidd. And yes, again, all in all, it's a very, for me, stagey movie, but I must say that the scenes from my recollection that work best are precisely the ones that Errol Flynn and Bette Davis have together. So I just think that probably they all, including Olivia, deserved a bit better. Okay, in 5th position, I ranked here the movie called Force a Crowd, that at least is not a historical piece, thank goodness, and it is yet another movie directed by Michael Curtiz, but in this case is a screwball comedy.
If I didn't love you, would I have braved 1,000 dangers and 20 dogs?
21.
21, and you love me too, you know you do. You wouldn't have tried to hide me, you wouldn't have tried to save me there if you didn't love me.
Why, that didn't mean a thing.
Oh, it means everything. It's only in a crisis like this that a woman finds her true feelings.
Does she?
Every time, you know she does. I love you and you love me, darling.
Well, I don't want to love you.
Darling, you can't do anything about it. You're sunk.
Am I?
Yes.
Oh, What's that?
Oh, it's just that talented animal of yours. He thinks he's Rachman enough.
No, I mean, what's this I smell?
Smell?
Yes, it smells like butter.
Butter? Butter? Couldn't be butter.
Well, then what is it? It's on you.
Oh, I remember what it is. It's that new hair oil. I told that barber not to put it on my head. It makes my scalp itch, too.
Well, don't use it anymore. I don't like it.
I know I won't again.
Oh.
There are two things here that don't work for me. I think for one, Warner Brothers was probably not the best studio for this type of comedy, and two, the script I don't think does justice to the actors and their intention. But for me, in this case, there are more enjoyable moments in this movie, even though, again, spoiler alert, Errol and Olivia don't end up together in the end, although they have some moments during the movie. Kind of one thing compensates for the other. And we also have Rosalind Russell in the cast, who is always, at least in my case, a pleasure to see in a movie. The plot for this one I had to check because it's a bit complicated for a comedy, and it all starts with Rosalind Russell's character, who in this movie plays a newspaper reporter. This was incidentally a year before His Girl Friday, so this movie might have had an impact on her casting. And she works for Patrick Knowles, again Patrick, who plays the owner of the newspaper that she works for, and it seems that he's going to sell it, or there's some sort of problem with the newspaper, and she's trying to get back the former editor-in-chief, played by Errol Flynn, who now has some sort of public relations agency and works for clients in order to restore their public image. And then we have Olivia, who plays a very ditzy, funny character. She is the daughter of a millionaire Errol wants to work for, who wants as his client, and who is in turn the girlfriend of Patrick Knowles, of the owner of Rosalind Russell's newspaper. So you can see how it's all mix and match. So it's a bit all over the place, as I said, but it is the perfect example of how wonderful, charismatic, charming actors just make it work. Errol and Olivia, as I was saying in the beginning, they have some very cute moments together here. And I will have to give two major shout outs to Walter Connolly, who plays Olivia's father here, who played a very similar character in the movie It Happened One Night, which is a film that I adore, and it was great to see him again. And Margaret Hamilton, whom you wouldn't recognize as the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz, has a very minor role here as the maid, and she is again a very welcome surprise in a movie. And again, all in all, it is quite enjoyable, and also it has Rosalind Russell, who had better comedy roles in other films obviously, but she does a great job. I think they all do a great job. They're all super charming, super funny, and for any Errol and Olivia fan, I think that is a film worth watching. Alright, in position number 4 we have, in my opinion, Dodge City, and it is also one that I enjoy for the most part, but one that I also think that has its flaws. In any case, this Western kind of like encompasses every element that we associate with the genre. We have saloon brawls, we have shootouts, we have bad guys, the sheriff, and so much more. Everything is here in Dodge City. They just went all for it, and it was incidentally Errol Flynn's first Western. He was very skeptical of taking part in a Western in the first place because of his English accent.
I'm not going to argue with you. Just sober up and stay sober, or I'll confiscate your liquor.
You lay a hand inside our wagon, I'll blow it up.
Look, Irving, we've got a very special treatment for bad little boys like you. Now you behave yourself, or you're going to ride into Dodge City backwards on a mule. You'll look very silly. Now we're moving. You better get started.
Even though he was from Tasmania originally, but for some reason they just passed it as an Irish who is in the West. That seemed to work fine for American audiences, who I think they incidentally thought that he was Irish. Again, Olivia's roles here is also just the one of the love interest. She could do so much more, but they have beautiful scenes, in my opinion, here together.
Wait, Abby. Is this showing proper respect for the law?
I never saw the law fall on his face before.
Didn't fall on my face. You know, there's an old saying in the British Army. The law must always save its face in front of the natives.
And what if the natives object to its face?
This movie inspired Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles, and we also have major shout outs for this movie. We have Victor Jory as the bad guy. We have also Henry Travers here, Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life. He's always a pleasure to see too in a movie. And Anne Sheridan too. She is wonderful as the saloon girl. And of course Alan Hale, who appeared in practically all Errol Flynn's movies in Warner Brothers, and they were very good friends in real life too. It is a very beautiful film with a plot that goes a bit too dramatic for my liking too, but in any case it is highly enjoyable. It's a good movie. Okay, in position number 3 I've placed, for sentimental reasons, They Died with Their Boots On. This is a movie that I watched a lot growing up. It was a film that my grandmother really adored, and I might be, as I said in the beginning, a bit biased about it. I'm quite aware that this movie is too a historical Western, even though it's not accurate at all, but to me it is a beautiful testimony of what the relationship of Errol and Olivia was in film. This was their last movie together, and it was in this case directed by Raoul Walsh. It has some very heartbreaking moments, also very beautiful moments together, at least from my perspective.
I said, will you marry me when I'm a general?
Oh, Lieutenant.
Oh, it's easy to become a general. Then that old crab, that nice old father of yours will be proud of me.
Yes, General.
So that is why I've placed They Died with Their Boots On in the 3rd place in my list. The script also, I think that it's a better one than the previous films. I mean, it's not true in its history depiction, but I think that in terms of characters, story development, and plot, I think that it's well constructed. This is, many of you must know, a highly fictionalized version of the life of General Custer from his days in West Point until his demise in the Battle of Little Bighorn. And Olivia plays his wife, Livy. Any depictions of any kind are painfully wrong, but it also has many emotional, beautiful scenes that have to do with what those movies stood for at the time, with honor, with camaraderie. I think that if you watch it too after Captain Blood, you can see an evolution, even though it's only 5 years or 6 after that movie. You can really see their evolution as man and woman and as actors too. And we have, as always, an impressive cast of character actors like Sidney Greenstreet, who has a cameo here, Arthur Kennedy, who is the villain of the movie, Hattie McDaniel, and Anthony Quinn. And my favorite moments from the film include the way the tune Gary Owen becomes the hymn of the 7th Cavalry. Also, a very funny scene between Errol and Olivia and some onions, and also their final scene together in the movie. Okay, number 2 of my particular ranking of Errol and Olivia's movies is, as you may guess, Captain Blood. This is a fantastic movie. This was their first and epic pairing. We have to remember that at that time they were both 2 unknown actors. This was their huge big break, and I think that it is one that, despite being filmed in 1935, despite being filmed in black and white, it is really a testament of what true fantastic adventure films were. It is utterly thrilling. They are both brilliant in my opinion. Here it's like they were born to play those parts, and the chemistry, as we know, was instant. And in this case, this film, as you may know, it was based on a novel by Rafael Sabatini. It's a pirate story about the life of Dr. Peter Blood, who is accused of being a traitor and sent away with many prisoners to the West Indies in order to be sold as a slave. And when he arrives there, he is bought by Olivia, who plays Arabella, and she's the niece of the governor, played by Lionel Atwill. And as you may know, Peter Blood turns to be Captain Blood. He leads the prisoners into escape and a life of piracy. And there's also, as I mentioned, Basil Rathbone, who plays another pirate, Captain Levasseur, who is, as I've said in previous videos too, a favorite of mine. I find him so wonderful. And we have lots of action, a fantastic final duel, and also, as we all know, Errol Flynn created an eternal and iconic swashbuckling hero here. He has such charisma, such command of the scene, even though this was his very first big role.
These articles entered into this 20th day of June in the year 1687.
Olivia was great as well as Arabella, and we also have again a fantastic cast of support actors. And I have to mention too the score, the incredible soundtrack of this movie. This is a fantastic movie, worth watching at any stage of your life. I don't think you will find a more rousing, thrilling adventure movie than Captain Blood. And right at the top, there could only be one option for me, and that is The Adventures of Robin Hood. I think it's the epitome of Errol and Olivia on film. If there is only one film that you can show and explain who Errol and Olivia were on film, you'd better show them The Adventures of Robin Hood. This movie was shot in beautiful, gorgeous Technicolor in 1938, 1 year before the impressive The Wizard of Oz. I think that all the elements in this movie are superb, and that is one of the reasons why this movie, still so many years later, people still find beautiful and audiences love it. The production cost over $2 million, which was nothing to sneeze at the time, and it shows. The movie won 3 Oscars for Best Art Direction, Best Editing, and Best Original Music. Again, Eric Korngold's score. We have Claude Rains, who is another fantastic, wonderful addition as a villain. We have again Basil Rathbone. We have Una Connor as Bess. We have Eugene Pallette, Alan Hale, Patrick Knowles. We were missing Patrick Knowles again. Errol Flynn created again an iconic representation of Robin Hood. He solidified the image for audiences to come, and many actors after him have in some way or another picked up from the attitude and the acting that Errol Flynn does here, and also Olivia has a significantly stronger role than in all the other movies. I think she saves his life at one point, and although she needs rescuing by the end of the movie, she has previously been the one who rescues or who helps rescue Robin Hood. She risks also her life in order to defend her ideas. Instead of rushing to marry and to be with Robin Hood, she stays in the castle to be of assistance in his cause. She is outspoken, she is smart.
Not only has she consorted with this Saxon rebel, found guilty of outlawry, theft, murder, abduction, and high treason, but she has betrayed her own Norman people.
I know now why you tried so hard to kill this outlaw whom you despised. It's because he was the one man in England who protected the helpless against a lot of beasts who were drunk on human blood.
You'll be sorry you interfered.
I'd do it again if you killed me for it.
And he is too, I think, a different kind of hero from the ones that people had seen previously. He is masculine, he is strong, but he's also tender, he's also sensitive, he is light-hearted, and he's humorous. So he portrayed a different kind of character, and he also, in terms of defending his cause, he has no prejudice against Normans. He is essentially against injustice. And the love story is one that in this case is not just the purpose of the movie. They need each other equally, they rely on one another, and I think that is why it makes their romance a wonderful one. Okay, so that was all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. It was extremely difficult for me to film today because of the traffic sounds. I had to stop multiple times, but I persevered. Follow me. As always, I hope you enjoyed this ranking, and feel free to comment down below what were your thoughts. Feel free to comment down below what were your thoughts on it, if you would rank some movies higher or lower. I know this is all very subjective. Also, who am I to be ranking their movies? And as always, again, thank you so much for watching, commenting, and sharing here. Take care. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and see you all in my next video.